Hello everyone, this is Zooc and today I'm bringing you a new illustration. This one is going to be my version of the Jungle Book, or at least a frame of how events would go down in a version that's more in tune with reality, if you can even say that. So anyway, since the movie came out and it's fresh in everyone's minds, I wanted to just make this a little fun drawing for myself. More to play around with this technique that I'm very much fond of, which is this semi-comic book style of inking, and in this case coloring as well. I usually don't color these, but because I'm trying to be less of a pussy about things, I wanted to embrace the use of colors, because quite frankly the only way to get better at it is to keep doing it. So if I fuck up, I fuck up. If some colors are off, they're off. It doesn't really matter. It'll get better next time. All that matters is that I do it and I get something out of it. So anyway, the drawing was live streamed on 2 occasions. The first time I actually did the line work, but was pretty displeased with it. It was quite dirty and sloppy at the end. So without any hesitation, I deleted the entire thing and re-recorded myself doing it in a much cleaner manner, as you see here. It helps to have good line work, even though it's not necessarily visible at the end once you're done with the coloring and everything. But just starting off with a clean base is generally recommended because it makes things easier along the way, and it just defines certain shapes and contours much better if the line work is high quality. So it's worth it putting that little bit of extra effort in it. Anyway, let's talk about the topic at hand, the Jungle Book. What is the big deal with it? I'm not sure how it goes for other countries, but it was kind of a big deal for me in my childhood. I think it might have had something to do with the fall of communism, because beforehand we didn't really have access to a lot of Western culture and cartoons and stories and movies and such, because communism was quite restricting when it comes to that. But the 1967 adaptation, the Disney movie, that was a big deal here. I watched that quite a few times and I saw it broadcast quite a few times. And, I think all of Disney's films were very popular here, because I think it was like the first taste of true Western culture, and people fell in love with it, of course, because we had some fucking depressing shit here beforehand. So, yeah, getting all the happy movies with the songs and the well-drawn animals and all that, I'm sure it appealed to a lot of people. And, it was one of those films that I watched several times. Of course, it had the animals, it had the formula for success, I guess, what makes a kid's movie successful. But the original stories, or fables, better said, they were published in 1894 by Rudyard Kipling, a British author, and they were used... Well, he wrote them for his daughter, and they were used as with a moral purpose. Had the anthropomorphic animals and all the elements that make a moral story. And he had spent a few years in India, of course, so he was heavily influenced by his time there. I think the first 6 years of his life, and then he returned at a later date for another 6 years. So that was quite a bit of time spent there. And of course, he fell in love with the place and used it as his inspiration for these stories. And of course, the cartoon adaptation has quite little to do with the original fables. For example, King Louis was not present in the books, and orangutans aren't even native to India. So that was another thing that Disney took a lot of liberty with. But hey, it's fine. It was for kids. It doesn't really matter that much. It wasn't meant to respect the precise formula, and it worked for what it was. But just as a matter of fact. So yeah, that's basically it. I mean, the story, everyone knows it. Watch the movie if you don't. Watch the cartoon if you don't. It's actually still pretty decent, I suppose. Even 50 years later. That's a long fucking time if you think about it. But let's talk a bit about the technique itself. So, the bottom line with this sort of technique is that you make an outline that is initially black, but at a later date is colored. Fill it in with a solid color, but keep in mind where the light source is, and use a very subtle gradient, for example, like I did on the panther there just now, and on the bear's fur as well. So a lighter color where the light is coming from, but not very noticeable, not so much that it looks like an actual gradient. It just has to be very subtle. And then what I'm actually using for shading is just a succession of strokes with a pen tool. So at no point in this drawing did I actually use a brush per se. This is all done with a sharp-edged tool. So you outline kind of the contours with a darker shade, and then you use highlights with of course, a lighter tone. And there was a an interesting discussion on stream about how big the nipples should be and how dark they should be, and there was a lot of direction on how to pursue drawing the nipples for the orangutan. And I'm just adding a very simple background there with some grass and some trees and a blue sky. Not really accurate with how a jungle environment would be, but the background wasn't really important. So what I'm doing right now, after I was done with the coloring, is coloring the actual line work. And this is a very tedious task, but it's worth doing because it makes things look a lot better blended, I suppose. I'm not sure what the word for it is. You can leave it black. I could leave it black, but it's generally much more pleasant to look at. I'm not even sure what effect it has psychologically, but I think it's just much more pleasant to look at when the line work is a couple of degrees darker than the color surrounding it. It just doesn't contrast as much with it, and it just looks better integrated, I suppose. So anyway, that's going to be my version of the Jungle Book. Poor Mowgli getting mauled and jumped and beaten with this spiked club. That's pretty much how it would go down if a child were to wander into the jungle, minus the clubbing, of course. I guess we can skip that part, but the rest would it would end pretty quickly. Let's just put it that way. So anyway, thanks for watching, and just so you know, there's a stream tonight as well at 6 p.m. Central European Standard Time. Standard Time, yeah. That's 8 p.m. for Romanians, where I'm going to be drawing an illustration I'm doing for the poker and Hearthstone player Elki. What's his name? Elki Gospelier. I'm not even gonna... I probably massacred that one. Something like that. Bertrand Elki Gospelier. Let's just leave it at that. So yeah, tune in for that. Twitch.tv/Zookster. Thank you very much for watching. Please rate that shit, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.